Hi, this is Josh,
And this is Matt.
and this is the Call to the Brewman's Bottle.
The Call to the Brewman's Bottle.
So, welcome back, guys. It's been another fun and eventful week. I know I'm pretty excited. I know I've got my birthday coming up this week. It's going to be kind of exciting. I'm hoping to do some things I haven't really done in a while. I'm probably going to go fishing or something like that. I don't know. It gets me kind of excited. I've always been into getting outdoors and going around and doing things like that. It's real fun to get a chance to sit down and talk with you before we're going to get out and go adventuring. I know Matt's got something coming up in his life pretty recent that's going to be
Bonnaroo this
awesome.
week.
Yeah, Bonnaroo this week. I'm not personally going to get a chance to go, but I don't really feel like I'm missing as much as I have in the past years. I know Matt's real excited, so who do you know of that you're going to be checking out at Bonnaroo this week?
Okay, Josh, I'm going to go through the list of my schedule personally. On Thursday at 8:30, 9 o'clock, Ari Shaffir goes on
Right on,
with
man.
Jamie Lee.
Have they been doing stand-up comedy? Did they do that last year when you were there?
Yeah, but this year they're coming out of the box big time. There's a lot of comedians that are playing throughout the entire weekend.
Awesome.
Hellmouth, King Gizzard, and the Lizard Wizard.
I don't even know who
Those
that
are
is.
like, it's like a psychedelic, trippy band. It's pretty crazy sounding.
Okay.
It's a lot of distorted singing. Against Me, Moon Taxi, which they're from Tennessee. Sylvan Esso, you've heard them.
Yeah, a lot of people heard Sylvan S.O. when they came out with that song Coffee that got really popular for a little while.
Alabama Shakes, which is very groovy, jazzy. Ben Folds, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I've seen them.
Okay, I have not. So I'm
Earth, Wind,
excited
and
to see
Fire,
that.
that's awesome, dude. That's going to be so much fun. Are you actually setting aside time to go see Earth,
Yeah,
Wind,
this
and
is
Fire?
my personal schedule that I've already set out.
Right on.
That way no one runs into each other.
Okay,
After Earth, Wind, and Fire is Dead Mouse for me.
awesome.
Then Flying Lotus after that. Saturday is Trampled by Turtles. Bleachers after that. The War on Drugs. You've probably heard them before.
I've heard of both them and Trampled by Turtles.
Okay. Sturgill Simpson. My Morning Jacket.
Wait. Sturgill Simpson, that guy, if I'm not mistaken,
Country.
he's a country guy, but have you heard of him at all? He has a song called Turtles Going Down, I think
Yes.
is what it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a really, really neat guy because a lot of his songs are in reference to a lot of psychedelic things, which isn't what you think of when you think
country. And his videos are real loopy looking too.
Oh, yeah, but musically, Sturgill Simpson all the way. I really, really like that.
After My Morning Jacket, I'm going to see Mumford & Sons.
Okay, that's going to be pretty awesome.
And then after Mumford & Sons is Bass Nectar.
Yeah.
Shaky Graves on Sunday.
Okay.
Then after that is Bella Fleck.
All right.
After that is Brandy Carlisle. Then Florence and the Machine. Then Robert Plant. And then after Robert Plant is Billy Joel. And that's the entire weekend.
Right on, man. So, but you're only setting aside time to see one comedian, but they're actually
No.
really stepping
On
their
Thursday,
game up?
they're doing 3 hours. There's like 8 of them.
Oh.
And then Ralphie May is playing on Saturday. I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry.
Awesome, man. Well, that sounds really, really cool and like a lot of fun. I wish you the best when you go to do that. So, going into a little bit of that, let's get started on some video games, man. There's some real exciting stuff going on with video games right now with what we referenced last week with the new Fallout video coming out, which now that we've had a chance to watch that, what did that make you feel when you watched that Fallout video, and what does it make you think about the new game coming out?
Okay, beside all the info that I've got for you in this little suitcase of knowledge.
Okay.
I really liked it. It as soon as it started to play, it brought all the familiar feelings back that we always got when we played those games. Period.
I agree entirely. As soon as it started, it zoomed out from the TV screen, and you're in just a blown apart place, and then it's showing what it was like, and then what it is like. I don't know. It just really gets you in the mood for a Fallout game. One thing that I really liked them showing, and I kind of hope they put a little more importance into it, was the fact that he had the dog with him. I know in all the iterations of Fallout that I got the dog and he ran around with me, he died real quick on my game and never made it far into the story with me, but I always thought it was cool that you could have a dog if you wanted to.
I really like the companion aspect. I also like the fact that it's very focused on the dog, so you get probably more in-depthness with how you control him, or maybe you can send him off and do stuff, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
In this Fallout in particular, you don't get to choose just a random person that you make. You actually play a storyline-based character. It's a military operative that's been asleep for 200 years.
That's really neat. So you're not making a character at this point. I'm sure they're not going to completely abandon the customization.
No. None of the customization has been shortened, only lengthened. To mention that as well, this game is double to triple the size of Skyrim, is what Bethesda has announced.
Whoa.
It is set right outside of Boston. So it's mostly the surrounding area of Boston. It's Belmont, Watertown, Somersville, and even Cambridge.
Okay.
And that's a lot of hilly areas and open areas, not to mention Boston itself that you'll be able to go inside.
And some rivers and stuff that run out through there, like where the city meets the coast. That's really cool. I like that Fallout gives you that. It's almost an element of hyper-realism right next to fantasy, in my opinion. There's vampires and stuff like that sometimes. Crazy things going on. But yeah, what else have you got that you've read up on it? Because all I watched was the video.
They accidentally announced that it will be November 2015.
Oh, wow.
That was leaked information. They did not deny it, and the main press conference for the actual game is this coming up Sunday.
Awesome. So we're going to be able to get a whole bunch of info and bring that back to everybody. Moving on a little bit from Fallout, but on the Bethesda train, we talked on the last episode, I talked at length about free-to-plays and things like that, and I figured, why not just jump right in and check one out? Now, WildStar's not going to go free-to-play until the fall, but you and I both already owned a copy and had played through the Elder Scrolls Online. What was your character, 23 or 22?
22.
Yeah.
22 mage or whatever.
And I also have a level 22, so we didn't make it through a whole bunch of the game, but we played enough to decide it really wasn't for us. Well, round 2 isn't necessarily going that way for me. What about you?
No, it's completely different, dude. I'm having a lot of fun, and it's not that ooze and ah spark, because I don't really get that after I've played a game once. Game is fun.
Yeah, and it doesn't really feel like they've changed a whole bunch. It really feels like I'm playing the same game, but when I just get to sit down and play, I know I don't have a subscription or anything like that. I feel like it pulls a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah, dude, the fact that I don't have to pay anymore makes the game 10 times better than it was, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and this isn't something I've really thought a whole lot about, but I know now, thinking about it as we're talking about it, when you're paying monthly for a game, there's almost a certain level of obligation to play that game. I mean, you're paying for it. You may have friends on there that you got work to do, trying to get gear together and whatnot. So, yeah, man, that's a really solid point that the lack of a subscription is kind of letting me relax and just move through it as I want to move through it.
I'll actually spend more hours on the game when I don't feel pressured, like, oh, I can only put this many hours in this month, and it's going to be $15. Instead of focusing on that stuff, instead of looking at like, okay, I need to be level 30, now I need to be level 40.
I was going to say, yeah, you got to get at level for the instance.
Right. To say that you fulfilled yourself in the game, when in all honesty, you fulfilled yourself when you bought it, and paying the subscription is just stress, like you said.
But also, I've allowed myself to read a lot of the quests that I'm doing this time that I didn't necessarily take the time. Almost the entire game, if not the entire game, is voice acted. So if you're going to sit there and listen to every single quest, you're going to be sitting there for quite a while. But when you get down and you read and you check out some of these stories, one thing that I want to point out that I didn't realize, because I had only really made one character in my previous experience in the game, but it's that the storylines are so drastically different depending on which faction or allegiance you go with.
And we all only played one.
Yeah, the Ebonheart Pact.
So we thought that was the entire game, and it definitely was not.
Well, I think I maybe made a dangerous assumption in that and thinking that it was like any other game and it does have its starter area, and most of those
starter areas are so sick.
And they are. They look different. They have different quests to do, but they're generally similar to get you on board with the game because it's introducing you to a lot of concepts. And then once you jump into the world outside of whatever island or whatever it sends you to in the beginning, it really just takes a completely different angle. The biggest thing I can point out is that I did the Aldemari Dominion, and they serve this queen, and you're right and involved with serving the queen right in the beginning. Whereas with the Ebonheart Pact, it seemed like it was much more a personal struggle.
Yeah, Ebonheart definitely felt like a revolutionary style.
Yeah, well, that
starter,
right, like a confederation of sorts. But anyways, so it's got a lot of different elements, and anybody that's trying it out, I guess what at moving forward would tell anybody that's going to try the Elder Scrolls Online for the first time is that when you get on there, and if you make a character and you don't really like the direction it's going, you don't like what you're doing, try something else. Because I quit before I did that, and I think that may have been a mistake.
Starting a new class, playing Rogue for the first time in 5 years is real interesting for me. And I really like how you pointed out that you can pick any race with any faction now.
Oh, yeah.
Which is real nice.
In the beginning, and I definitely don't remember it being like that.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
Right. The beginning, the way I remember it was you played, there's 9 races in the game, and then 3 per faction or allegiance. And once you've picked your allegiance, you can only pick the 3 races within that allegiance. So say you really like the storyline with one of them, but you really wanted to be the race that you like from the Elder Scrolls, you just can't do that. But now you can, and that was really neat. I completely agree. That's going to open the door for a lot of new folks as well.
What was the other thing that you mentioned about the treasure drop that really brings a lot of people to the table as well?
I'm not 100% on that because I haven't run through the dungeon. All I did was read what the guy within the game that sends you to the dungeon says, and it made it sound like the drops at the end of the dungeon was going to be quite a bit different. As I said previously on the podcast, if I would run the dungeon with my friends after I had already done it and completed it, it really felt like there was nothing left in that dungeon for me, and I had no reason to go back. But now, from what I read at least, and I may have misunderstood it, but it makes it seem like you're going to be able to run the dungeon and get a different drop at the end of every dungeon. And which would give not necessarily the call to grind the dungeon, but it would give the call to go back for some
do it
benefit.
more than one time.
Yeah, because I like I said, going through it the time I did, it just really seemed worthless to go back and do it again, other than the fact that I wanted you guys to catch up to me.
So we were sitting here playing Elder Scrolls together, and we kind of figured that we might want to do a Let's Play, and we wondered if you guys would enjoy that at all.
Right, definitely. I've always thought it would be fun to sit down and record myself playing a game, but when we brought that up together, it brought up something that I felt was just the perfect question to ask on the podcast. So we're coming to you guys directly and asking you a question. Matt and myself both, we buy co-op games a lot of times based on the fact that they're co-op games and we want to play a game together. And what we want to ask you guys is, if we did that kind of a thing, how interested would you be to watching us on our first go in that game? Or say we decided we wanted to make 2 new characters in Elder Scrolls and record what we're doing in Elder Scrolls. What type of a response do you guys feel like we would get? And how interesting do you think that would be? Moving on, just as a supplement to the podcast, and definitely not as what the podcast is going to become. But if we were to throw those types of things up on the channel, what response would you guys have to that? A little bit more into video games, we at the beginning of the podcast, we're really into a game called Heroes of the Storm. Anybody that's been listening for the past really 6 episodes, you've heard us talk about it. Now, Heroes of the Storm has been released as a free game. You download it and you start playing it. I can't say how exciting that is to me. I really like free stuff, especially a game to the quality of Heroes of the Storm and the attention that it needs. It's going to get it with how many people are going to be downloading this game for free. Now, that being said, there's also been a couple of updates to the game since we've talked about it. Some new characters, maybe some balancing things. But really and truly, we wanted to talk about the 2 new characters that were at least new to us since the last time that we played. I know there's one that I'm going to be really, really into, and there's another one that I know our roommate as well as Matt will be really into. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about Johanna. They're bringing in the Crusader from Diablo 3, as they have with some of the other Diablo 3 classes, as a character within the MOBA. Now, that just makes me grin and really just gets my nerd going on so many different levels, because I feel like a MOBA with the Diablo characters is just something. Why didn't they do it sooner? You know, it makes perfect sense. I really hope they even bring in some of the old Diablo 2 characters into it. But also, when it comes to the Crusader class in Heroes of the Storm as a MOBA, I feel like as a MOBA, Heroes of the Storm is lacking in one particular type of character, and that's just the tank character. The one that just stands there and soaks up damage and does a lot of control. Now, not to say that they don't have it, but they need more of it, in my opinion, and Johanna is just that. Her abilities seem to focus on being able to improve her own armor, being able to improve general positioning in team combat, and really it just seems like she's the one that's going to stand there and try to draw some focus. Because if you don't kill her, it's not that she doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but she's probably not going to be getting any kills. But like I said, if you do not kill her, she's going to be able to push and pull you wherever she wants you in the fight. So it seems like Johanna is going to be a character that you really want on your team with somebody, if you have a team that's going to work very well together. But you also want to consider that her mobility is lacking as a heavily armored and heavily survivable character. But a lot of her abilities and their ability to push and pull, like I've said, will help that. She has another ability that was called Shield Flare or Shield Glare that I thought was extremely interesting. And this one causes basic attacks to miss for about 1.5 seconds. And to me, that's going to cause her to be able to go into a fight and really change the way a lot of characters function, especially if you've got a character that's snowballing their basic damage. You can remove their ability to affect a fight for a full 1.5 seconds with this type of an ability, and I think that's really awesome. So moving on a little bit from Johanna, not to say that, you know, I could talk about anything Paladin or Crusader-esque for a really long time, but there's another character that looks really interesting. He seems like a throwback to the type of a character that Invoker is in Dota, and it's called Kel'Thas. This is a character that both you and Cody seem to really go toward. Cody, because of their ability to change and do more unique things than most other characters. And I would say, Matt, you would find it extremely interesting because of his ability to be that ranged assassin that's dumping damage in droves.
He drops so much damage. He's a lot like Invoker from Dota 2.
Right. But anyways, this particular guy, now we've said Invoker twice. He's a throwback to Invoker because Invoker was a character in Dota that can use his orbs. He's a magician of sorts, a wizard that uses these orbs to change his ability bar. And when the ability bar changes, you know, you have a character. In the end, I believe you could probably say that Invoker has at least twice, if not 3 times, the abilities of any other character in Dota. And so this is a character in Heroes of the Storm that doesn't have that same feel, where Invoker could change all kinds of stuff, have completely new abilities from different elements and things like that. Kel'Thas is very much a fire wizard. When he activates his orbs that are floating around his head, it improves his fire abilities. I think that this is going to make that type of a character a lot more palatable to a lot more people, don't you?
Yeah, I really like him just for the simple fact that he's a ranged spellcaster. That hits home for me. That's in my heart. It's simple. You can play it blindfolded almost.
Like that fire mage in Dota you loved a whole lot.
Yes. I also want to mention another thing called Internal Conflict, Josh, in Heroes of the Storm. It's a new thing that's being released at the end of the month. It's a month-long campaign-style good versus evil. And at the end of it, a new character from Diablo, as you so mentioned earlier, called the Butcher, will be released as a character.
Okay, so let me dig into your brain a little bit with what you're talking about, because this is news to me in this instant. I've never heard of this. So when it comes down to, you're talking about like a campaign style playthrough, you mean to tell me that in the MOBAs that we've played, where any type of campaign or story that you wanted any information on, you had to go digging through your character's backstory and the wikis and all that they're going to bring one in to Heroes of the Storm where it's almost like Alliance versus Horde, good versus evil. You're going to pick a side and play for it, or is it like the characters playing for their sides?
There's also a new map that's being released where avatars of good and evil will be summoned and they will fight each other on the battlefield.
Okay.
So it's a new map. The new character, the Butcher, he plays very simply. His first attack is a lot of massive damage and bleed. His second attack is a charge with a stun. His third attack, he can summon an AoE on the ground that chains the target to a particular area. And then his fourth attack is an AoE that's centered on him that does a massive amount of damage. So he's headlong into the combat constantly.
Right on. So he's the type of... he's like a... What do you call it? Is he like a melee assassin?
He's an assassin. He's an assassin, yeah.
But what about this campaign mode that you were talking about? You've really got me interested on that. Have they released a whole lot of information on it, or is it just something that they're teasing that, hey, this is coming, and then we'll get it when we see it?
It's called the Battle for Eternity. It's part of the Eternal Conflict event. One of the setups of the map involves having two boss characters fighting each other. Whichever team intervenes and defeats the other one's boss will get them on their side to fight for their team.
Okay. So it's like a new it's a new map, and then it's a part of this event that is going to culminate with the release of this new character.
Yes, it'll be the 8th map released on Heroes of the Storm.
Well, that's something we've already talked about at length, really, but I want to put an emphasis on again is that Heroes of the Storm is just continuing to make itself better with these maps and these different ways that they go about saying, you're going to play the same game, but it's definitely not going to feel like you're just playing the same game over and over again. I know when I'm by myself and I'm trying to play like Dota or something like that, not to really knock it, because Dota, in my opinion, is a wonderful game, as is League of Legends and Smite and most of the MOBAs that I've actually sat down and tried to play, I've enjoyed. But when it comes to sitting down and playing game after game after game after game, I can't do that if I'm playing it on the same map every single time, and it feels like, especially if you get on a real long win streak or lose streak or whatever, it feels like you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And with Heroes of the Storm, it seems like they're really moving away from that. And I got kind of excited thinking that maybe they'd bring in a type of a campaign mode, and I really want to see what this event's going to bring to us.
So moving on from games, what about that Mr. Robot show?
Right. Well, if we're going to talk about Mr. Robot, then I feel like we ought to start with the beginning there. We decided you and I decided about 8 months ago that cable was not something we wanted in our lives anymore. It's a farce when it comes to the money they're asking you to pay, and it's 2015. We're getting our video games a la carte. Really, we can buy them on Steam. We can get what we want. They're trying to butcher that with this DLC craziness in the directions that some of the games have tried to take it. But in truth, you can just go and get your video games where you want your video games. We get our movies a la carte. We can get Netflix and get them either sent to our house or we can watch whatever we want streaming and so on and so forth. And then a lot of the not basic cable channels are coming out with answers to the a la carte television thought process, such as HBO Now on Apple TV, which we'll talk a little bit more in a second about that. But in the beginning, it just all comes down to, I don't think cable is worth what the cable companies are charging for it, and I'm not going to participate anymore. You feel me?
Yes.
So you were asking about Mr. Robot. Well, we got Apple TV instead of cable. And I can't sing the praises enough about Apple TV. But on Apple TV, there's even like ABC and CBS and things like that. Well, in looking at that, we found this show called Mr. Robot. And it's a pilot that you can watch. The series is going to premiere June 24th. But I'm sure through the streaming service or through their website, you can get on and you can watch this pilot. Now, we sat down not knowing at all what to expect when it came to this thing, but our roommate called us in and said we had to watch this show. Now, after sitting down and watching, I'd say 15 minutes of the show, you knew it was for us. This is the type of show we're into. And one of the things that I can't say that's positive about it enough is that it seems like the producers of the show have done their homework.
I'm not a big computer whiz kid. Cody of the house is the whiz kid, but yes, he informed us that a lot of stuff was very specific and to the point. There were some things that were very showy, but
Right.
other than that, a lot of things they had right, and a lot of things that he has seen and are real in day to day.
Well, one of the things that, just in you saying that some of it's show and some of it's not, one of the things that I really like about this particular show is it seems like they know what parts of it are Hollywood and they make it very Hollywood. For instance, the big bag corporation in the show is called Evil Corp.
Or
Just
E-Corps
outright.
for short.
Yeah, I mean, just outright. They're coming out with it. When they have to do Hollywood things, it's like they know they have to do Hollywood things. But anyway, so we're just telling you that, oh, yeah, we really like this show. Well, this show is about a guy, and it's the typical, oh, there's a hacker trying to bring down the man. So it has a lot of elements that do pay homage to Ghost in the Shell, but this particular show is more about this one hacker that sees the way people behave in certain elements of the internet that, the typical person that's involved with the internet doesn't know much about. But as you move further in, you learn about what the deep web is and so on and so forth. It's a show about a real hacker that would exist in these channels and what he's going to do to basically bring down the truly evil people. And when you're going to make a show like that, you certainly have to do your research because you're getting at an audience that is some of the most analytical people on the planet.
What I really like about the show is the actual story depth itself. Besides the glitz and the glamour on the technical part, this guy had a really troubled childhood. This guy sees people for who they are, and he always focuses on their bad faults. And he does that in a very artistic way, and I really like the narrative that he gives the show.
Oh yeah, it's so gritty for an ABC show.
Not to mention, he doesn't do stuff for money or for fame. He's almost like a modern-day superhero, and I hate to use that term, but at the very beginning of the pilot, 5 minutes in, he's already turned into a child molester because he can, and that's it.
Oh yeah. Well, and it seemed like it's so much more personal to him than it is about trying to be recognized. Like a lot of the other hacker shows or TV or movie or anything like that, it seems like they try to build people up to being, oh, look at me. And this is a show about a guy that's just, like you said, because he can. He's doing these things because he can and other people can't or won't. And I think that that's a really big draw to a show like that as well. But yeah, you're talking about how he had a really troubled past and so on and so forth. The show itself is just, it seems like the entire thing wants to give you this air of, we're not going to tell you a story about the most popular people. We're going to tell you a story about the guy that was beat up, and he's been through life, and life's definitely put him through the ringer. And I really like shows like that give you somebody that's far, far from perfect, but is doing something that's just so much bigger than they are.
Even with the camera lens that they used, a lot of colors are off, a lot of greens, a lot of grays, a lot of blacks, a lot of shadow in the show. It reminds me a lot of a movie called Dark City, or maybe even Breaking Bad when it becomes gritty, because the farther you get into Breaking Bad, the grittier it starts to look.
Right, and you don't even know when that type of stuff is really affecting you until I think the third or fourth time that you watch something. When you're sitting down for the first time, that type of thing, when it comes to, like you're saying, the lenses and the different colors that they're allowing you to see, that can be just that icing on the cake to get you in that mode that you're just in it.
It's a lot of subconscious backdrop.
Right. But definitely on June 24th, everybody that's into any type of a TV drama and is a techie at all, or if you're just interested in that type of thing, sit down and check this show out. We really enjoyed watching the pilot. If you have access to the streaming services like we found on Apple TV, you can just sit down and watch it right now. And it was wonderful.
Can we reiterate, what station was it on? Did you say USA?
Oh, yeah, I definitely made a mistake there. It's USA, not ABC. It's one of those 3-letter named TV channels, whatever. But I really have never expected any of those TV channels, now that we're saying that, to put out anything that I would say, oh, you've got to watch this.
We say that now, but think about what PG-13 movies look like compared to the PG-13 movies that we grew up with.
Right. I completely agree. It's definitely going to be changing, but when it comes to the channels in particular and the content that they have put out in the past, some of these things are just complete haymakers out of left field when it comes to the quality of television programming that they've been putting out in the past, in my opinion. In fact, I cannot think of one TV show on USA that I watched in my entire life from start to finish because it was awesome. But this one right here, this will probably be the one. And I'll say that the same feeling came to me with A&E and The Walking Dead. As, when you hear about HBO putting out a show that's awesome like that, it's like, oh, of course, HBO puts out that kind of content. And I guess I just want to tip my hat to these networks for really stepping their game up.
It's AMC on Walking Dead.
Oh, I'm sorry. AMC for Walking Dead. That's obviously these networks don't hit on my radar real well. But in talking about the Apple TV and stuff, I know I could go at length about how awesome this Apple TV is and how I'm really, really glad that we're not participating with the just general cable anymore. Just a few of the features that I wanted to talk about with Apple TV in particular is something that I referenced a few minutes ago when it comes to basically TV a la carte, like as you want it, whatever you decide you want on your TV at the time. This Apple TV, in my opinion, is really one of the first things to come out that does that very, very well. And the thing that pushed us to get it is that you actually can get HBO now on Apple TV for just the HBO subscription. And I will go ahead and say HBO is what kept me on a cable subscription for the past 3 years. And I know that you feel the same way about that because we've shared a cable bill for the past 3 years.
I really like that the older I get, the targeting for the market of it all is changing drastically, from moving from caring about broadcasting and going to a company that is going to sell us airway for a certain amount of channels. I can go to the provider that I like specifically and say, I will pay you $8, $9, $10 a month, and I will buy your service without having to buy from these guys. There is no need for this middleman. I'm buying your product.
Absolutely. And I really feel like it's somebody making a lot of money for not doing much. Now, when we talk about what those cable companies do that I want from them, I want good internet services. I want you to be able to guarantee the flow of information to my house.
Because that's what matters in the end. I'm
Right.
going to be picking all these shows and these movies and whatnot. Everything's going to be streamed. So really, as long as you're on the ball with internet connection, that's all I care about.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And just like you said, as you get older, I mean, when I have my kids able to access these types of electronics, I know when I was a kid, I was able to figure out how to watch whatever I wanted through the cable company. And I'm sure my kids will be able to trump my technological thought processes one day. But what I'm getting at with this is just the ability for parental controls on what your kids have access to when it comes to you being able to pick and say, I want this but not that. You know, I want these but not those. It's so much better, and it's all about the customer, which in the end, isn't that what's going to make you money, is really caring about what your customer wants? And how many people nowadays are really shouting for this just on-demand experience with television in general, not just, oh, I want to be able to record my stuff. I want to be able to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. My first experience with that type of a interaction with HBO Now on Apple TV, I was able to sit down and watch the latest Game of Thrones episode the day it came out. Absolutely impeccable quality through the Apple TV, and it was no trouble. I didn't feel like I had missed anything by just sitting down and click, 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 watching the show.
Not to mention on space, too. When we were growing up, huge satellites, and then, you know, look at what we have now on the Apple TV. It's the size of my wallet.
Oh, my goodness.
And the remote is half the size of my wallet.
Not even when we were kids. How big is an Xbox 360?
Yeah, you have a
How
point.
big is an Xbox One? You know, that a lot of people nowadays, that's how you're watching your Netflix on your TV. You know, I remember having the huge entertainment center, which even in the past 4 years, it's gone from one size requirement to another size requirement. Eventually, man, it's not going to be, oh, we need to get a projector. It's just going to be a part of your wall.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the thinner that monitors and TVs get, that the technology that they use is going to change completely. It might become a pad, a digital pad that can project noise and visuals.
Well, whatever it becomes, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm very, very relieved to have the cable TV provider out of my life in that element. I would gladly give you my money, AT&T, just for your internet. You don't got to clump all my TV together. And it seems like that's the way things are going, and it's a very exciting concept for me personally. I'm really enjoying it. And the last thing that I want to mention about the Apple TV personally is that when it comes down to the anime that I want to watch and so on and so forth, this is allowing me to take a lot of things that would usually be on your computer or whatever and put them on my TV. So I'm able to get my Crunchyroll on my TV and my Hulu's up on my TV, whereas, you know, our Xbox and our PS3, we didn't have Hulu on those things to watch when we were trying to do it. Definitely didn't have any of the apps updated. And so now we're getting the ability to really clump in all of these different types of entertainment through movies and television all in one area, and it's really, really great. And I think moving forward through the podcast, as we find more things that the Apple TV can do and stuff like that, we'll tell you about that as well.
And don't forget that, of course, it doesn't work for us. We're kind of shit out of luck. But for Cody, or for a user that has an iPhone, remember you can control every single little nook and cranny of your TV from your iPhone.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, just as a techie in general, my whole feelings towards iPhones and just Apple in general, especially since starting the podcast, is definitely softening. And here, before you know it, there's going to be a MacBook in here that's got Josh on it. You know, it's going to happen. I need it at this point. So going on a little bit, we're talking about TV and all that stuff. I definitely mentioned Game of Thrones. We have the season finale coming up this Sunday, which sadly you're going to be at Bonnaroo, but that's going to be an awesome experience. I know that you were busy when I got to sit down and watch this past second to last episode, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but I'm just going to go ahead and say for everybody and for you, Matt, this episode was a good watch, but it's going to really tear you in two. There's some heavy hitting stuff happening in these last 2 episodes, and I think that this is what Game of Thrones this season needed in order to really get their viewer base back for the next season that they're going to be putting out. When it comes to who I've talked to about Game of Thrones, I've heard one thing about this last season more than anything else, and that's that people really didn't feel like it was taking them as much. The last 3 episodes in this season are going to do that for you, in my opinion. So give it a shot. Sit down and watch them. I know it felt slow moving in the beginning of the season, but there's a lot of info in there that you can really pick up on. Just you have to kind of stomach. Bran is not in this season, really. You have to just kind of stomach. There's some things that you're not going to get information on. Just know they're still important to the story, and you're going to get that. And let the characters that are in this season entertain you. Now, one movie, really, this time that we need to talk about in this episode, you showed me, is called The Martian. We were talking this week about how we wanted another movie of the quality of Interstellar. And this trailer, oh my goodness, Matt, it is blowing my mind.
Yeah, man, my wishes came true. I couldn't have said it any sooner. Matt Damon is going to do an amazing job, and Ridley Scott is the director. And right. I don't care what you say, I love Ridley Scott.
What other things has he done? He doesn't really strike me. You said that to me when we were watching the trailer. You were like, Josh, Ridley Scott did this one. I nodded my head. But really and truly, man, what other things has he done that would make me understand that statement a little bit better?
All right, man, I'm just going to go through a list and just kind of blow your mind. Exodus, Gods and Kings, Prometheus, okay. Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, The Counselor. I could have stopped at Blade Runner.
Yeah, okay. I definitely feel like a moron because I loved Blade Runner, but I mean that the name just didn't strike me. This yes is going to be an experience.
We also did Kingdom of Heaven. I don't want to leave that out, so I'm sorry.
Now, that was pretty good, but the extended version is really where the masterpiece is in Kingdom of Heaven, in my opinion.
The 3.5-hour movie?
Yeah, it's really long, and you got to really like Crusaders to keep up with that one. But anyways, so getting back to The Martian. If you haven't sat down and watched this trailer, go watch it. Pause the podcast right now. Go watch the trailer. It's amazing. Maybe the best trailer I've ever seen in my entire life for anything. I felt goosebumps. I felt emotions during the trailer as though I was just watching a movie. And it was just a few minutes.
I mean, everyone, we can rant all day about how amazing the fantasy movies are becoming and how amazing the comic books are coming. But what about space, dude?
Right. I mean, when we were kids, we were getting space movies like Armageddon. And now we're getting these types of movies, and man, it's really just tickling my brain. One of the things about The Martian that I'm really excited to see is how accurate are they going to try to take it.
Yeah, he really focused on a lot of how he's going to have to do a lot of scientific survival tactics to go ahead and give you a little story for everyone that's too lazy that hasn't watched the video. Matt Damon's character goes with a group of people to Mars. They decide to leave early because of a huge storm, and Matt Damon is presumed to be dead, but he is left behind. He only has 30 days to do 4 years worth of work because that's how long it's going to take for another rescue party to get back to him.
Right. Like you said, it's going to be, he's got something that's set up for 30 days. Like, they were supposed to be there and then leave, and he's got to make it last for the 4-year trip that it would take for them to get back. Yeah. To quote him from the trailer, he said, I'm going to have to science the shit out of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you're going to say that in your trailer, if you're going to have somebody saying that in your trailer, you're going to have really done your research. And when it comes to like movies like Blade Runner and stuff like that, this Ridley Scott guy has gone into detail before. And not to say, oh man, Blade Runner was a super accurate movie, but it was an attention to detail movie.
I think it was for the world that he created. It was extremely accurate.
Oh yeah, well that's what I mean. It was just that attention to detail. But when it comes to this, the reason that the question comes up in my head at all is because people blew Gravity away. They were like, this wasn't right, that wasn't right, this wasn't right. When the story and the movie Gravity, if you could just let it grab you the way it was supposed to, was magnificent. Even though the science may not have been 100%. And then you've got a movie like Interstellar, which it gets so crazy scientific that it's brain bending. You're sitting there asking yourself, wait, is that real? I know we
That's
people
not
have
a
done
concept.
research on that.
When some guy over here, oh yeah, we have been doing research for the past 20 years. Actually, you need to keep up, not me.
Right. And so you're like, oh my God, these movies, they're really uncovering something. And it really, I had no real interest in giving any real thought to scientifically understanding quantum mechanics in the way that I did after I watched Interstellar ever before. I don't know about you, but I just never given it that thought.
Dude, I've liked quantum physics. I took physics in high school, dude. I've loved it ever since.
Yeah, well, I've loved it, but like I'm saying is that the Interstellar put your brain, I think, on the level of really intimately attempting to understand it.
I won't say that. I will say, because like I said, dude, I read a lot, and I'm a bookworm when it comes to a lot of stuff, so I've read quantum physics. I'm not saying I'm a whiz kid and I understand it. I do like it, but this was definitely the banana and the cherry on top that goes to this Sunday of...
Right on.
Also, I want to mention on The Martian, I really like how for the past 10 to 15 years they've been talking about going to Mars. I mean, George Bush talked about it. Barack Obama talked about it. They're really talking about sending people to Mars. And I feel that it's either coincidental or it's got Ridley Scott thinking, if we really went to Mars, what would be the bare minimum? How would we survive? How would we grow food on this red planet? Like, all these different things that he has to worry about. Even getting wounded, was in the trailer, which is a very interesting concept. So I'm just excited overall.
Yeah, you hit on something real neat that is a recurring phenomenon when it comes to movies and government. When people are talking about that type of thing, during wartime, war movies escalate drastically. So the same type of thing goes down with the pursuit of, I would think, space endeavors. That when people were really into the moon and stuff like that, and JFK gave his speech about it, and the space race was going down, space sales were up at the time, and people were putting out stuff about it. So I think you're really hitting on something there, where you're talking about how it gets you excited, it gets you pumped up for that kind of thing. I think that's exactly what they want. And I think that our world, for at least the time since the real space programs ended when we were kids, to now where we've got the space programs becoming re-energized with the dude landing a probe on a comet that got in trouble for his sexy t-shirt. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the guy with all the tattoos.
Yeah, well, I mean, and he look like the type of dude that you would want to kick it with. These are the types of people that they're trying to get with these movies, I think. They want people to get out there and really be thinking about these things, because for a long time, space hadn't been really interesting for a lot of people. One of the reasons that we're sitting down and doing the podcast all together is the fact that we are fascinated by the merging of popular culture and nerd culture as the nerds grow up. And we realize that there are so many people out there that have that one mind with us, that we like these things, and we'll pay to go watch these things. We'll pay to interact with these things. We'll play these video games. We'll read these books. We'll thumb through the comics and watch the movies. We will do all of that. And I think the more we participate in it, the more people sit down and talk about it and stuff like that, the higher quality stuff we're going to get, and the more it's going to be like what we want. And so you're talking about space movies for space times, man. Nerd stuff for nerd times. And I really, really enjoy it just as an individual. So we're coming up on the end yet again. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time with all of you guys, as always. I really just can't say enough, like I do every episode, how much I look forward to coming and sitting down and just chatting with Matt, and how it really feels like that we're sitting here and we're reaching into the computer screen and trying to chat with you guys as well. And it's a lot of fun. I do a lot of this this research right on the spot so that we can have all this stuff fresh on our minds when we're talking to you guys about it. One comment that we had on the YouTube that I want to reference real quick before it's over is our buddy Kyle came in and gave quite a lot more information on one of the D&D sessions that we had. So if any of you have been getting interested in the starter campaign breakdowns that we've been doing, we didn't have that session this week, so we didn't really have a focus on it in the podcast. But go check that out because he gave some really good information in that comment.
I do want to throw out the most positive reviews, Josh, that I've been getting from word of mouth or people that have been texting or whatever. Two things. One, they really like the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. It really sucks them in. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you, first and foremost, that is a good thing.
Well, go check out that comment if you guys like it, for sure.
And second is, and I promise we will bring this back. I know for the past couple episodes we haven't really talked about it, and I do apologize, but comic books. I know a lot of you have been asking for comic book talk. It will happen in the next episode.
We've been building our knowledge base on comic books. Just a little teaser. I know you got me started on one called Baltimore, and you've got another one called Saga sitting in my room I need to read. We couldn't even begin to thumb your list of the things that you've started reading on. So definitely, guys, comic books are making a comeback. Also, Crowfall will be making a comeback. They've been having a lot of releases on that as well. But here we are at the end, so if you like what we're doing, hit that like button. If you want to hear more, hit subscribe and leave us a comment. Like we say, we would love to talk back with you guys. So hit us up, and until next time, this is Josh.
And this is Matt.
And this has been the Call to the Brewman's Bottle.